This next young woman has also seen much of the world. She's a poet, a performance artist, a singer, songwriter, and she has her own asteroid belt. Janet Kuypers.
Asteroid belt. I got the Kuiper belt going on. Hi. I am pleased I'm here with you because I, as the performance artist, just today from Scars Publications, I run this thing with 2 literary magazines that are regular books. Scars just released today a collection of poetry from performance art shows over like a 7-year span. And it's funny that I've got the Chicago Skyline on it because it's got some things from my shows because I'm a Chicagoan, as well as some things that were from once I've moved here to Austin as well. So I thought I'd show up this book, yay, chapter 48, 1, 2, dun, dun, dun. And I thought I would read 3 pieces from different shows. And she said I've traveled, so I should go with this one first, I guess. This was from a show that I did with live music from the Hangman of South Africa. He was visiting and played music behind my poetry readings. And this is one of the pieces from it, and it's called Been a World Leader. People can think that Americans are cocky and arrogant because we've been a world leader for so long. Because even though our cars are from Korea, our electronics are from Japan, and we owe China billions, better beers are from Germany, better wines and champagnes from France. Because even though we've been thrust into this global economy that Al Gore pushed us into by creating the internet, us Americans still seem to want to rest on our past laurels through the next millennium. Once I stopped at a bar at a dive in Munich. In München. And a female bartender tended bar for 3 old German men and 1 very out-of-place American, barely speaking or knowing German. I figured I could just sit there and point to a beer name on a tab, pay in euros, and leave it at that. But at one point, after the jukebox in the far corner that I never even actually noticed started playing some new American-sounding pop song, one of the old German men started and turned to me, and he just started yelling at me in German. Holding my Franziskaner draft as my eyes just turned into saucers, I was unable to say a word to this old German man yelling at me in a language I could not decipher. That's when the bartender yelled back at the old man in German and then in English. They didn't play that song, I did. So I smiled at the bartender and finished my beer, realizing that us Americans can still get into trouble without even saying a word. This is a short one, and yes, it's mentioned Chicago, but I hope you like it. It's called Jumping from the Skyline to the Clouds. Joining commuters driving toward the Chicago Loop, I watched majestic skyscrapers frame the skyline as I witnessed over Lake Michigan early morning clouds, thin at the top. Each cloud looked like a snow-capped mountain that framed this flatland city surrounding the skyscraper skyline with that sun-kissed stratosphere. The clouds almost looked like they shadowed drawings and touched by the hand of God. Poetry bond of 1 year because I won't. This one is actually from when I went back to visit Chicago last year. This is a poem I wrote here, and I'd like to share it with you guys. It's called Newspaper Inks the Blood of a Dying Species. Sitting in those basement labs, the hum of computer workstations accompanied my thoughts. Time was ticking, deadlines darted, but I was just used to this daily deadline. The rush to me was like my nicotine. I'd slam my hands, my fingers into that keyboard so that every newspaper would know my side of the story. I would keep copies of my work in 9-point type 2-inch wide columns. But newspaper pages are thin as tissue. I can't hold my work in this form forever, and not like this. The ink smudges from in my hands and disappears whenever anyone touches the page. Maybe it's just the disintegration of the written word, now that everyone seems to prefer reading the news from their iPhones and tablets. Besides, they want to be able to read on their commute train to work. Newspaper ink could smudge into their crisp, white shirts. Journalism is a dying art. Millennials think that using your smartphone and texting to anyone what everyone blurts out is actually news. So they post their nonsense on every electronic medium they can find. Besides, with the prices that they pay for phones now so they can Google every question they have and not have to retain any answers, texting and data better be free. But not like those newspapers, not the tabloid ones, but the ones that you have to spread out, arms out wide to read. You know, the cumbersome ones. The ones that make you feel like you have something worth saying because it's something of value. This is what I loved. I loved being able to make a statement on a printed page and have it delivered to the town's front doors. I'd open up my front door and open up the paper. It's just like one that's delivered to every other front door, and open the paper wide and then find what's mine. Why bother remembering stories in the news when you can just reference it in archives online? Well, you may be right. It may seem convenient, but it's inconvenient to search for these stories in the first place. And anyway, I still contend that it's better for your eyes and maybe your brain to be able to read something from a page, because that's how you can retain information when it's actually sitting there on a page. I know, newspaper is a dying species, it's a dying art, but the oils, the pigments that make the ink, they make our blood. Understand this. And if you ever grab a newspaper again, if any of that ink smudges onto your fingers, well, rub it in. Let it get into your bones, because this stuff's in our blood, and this gives us life.